Tammy?
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, having a little cup of coffee here. So,
Oh, awesome.
looking-
Let's try and get your audio. I have to step away for a couple minutes too, but I see Sam's not here. But let's try and get your audio happening again because it's been so right beside the little microphone that says mute under it. There's an up arrow. So if you click on that, and I think choose settings, audio options maybe. No, not audio options. Hi, Anna.
Hello. Yeah, I'm looking at it now. So it's a microphone.
We're just trying to sort out Glenn's sound.
Because it was a little low last time.
It has been up and down. It sounds a little better now. Anna, you're muted too.
When I speak just like I'm doing now, how does this sound?
It's a bit better than it was at the very beginning, but it kind of goes in and out. But I remember that in one of the sessions, we sorted it out so your sound was the same as everyone's, and that was exciting.
Really? Yeah. I don't know why that is. I don't understand that how it works.
Yeah, it's a lot better right now than it was at the beginning. So maybe we just bullied it into it.
Yeah, exactly.
We want Glenn's voice.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to step away for, I just have something I have to do before I can properly join. So I'll just be a few minutes.
Yeah, that's good. So,
hey, Glenn.
how are you doing, Anna?
I'm doing okay. Yeah, how are you doing?
Yeah, enjoying a little cup of coffee here. So, sitting.
Has it been cold?
Yeah, quite cold, but very good to be inside. So,
yeah. And it's getting light quite quickly, isn't it? You must be the same as us because before at this time it would have still been dark, and now well, you can see in my window it's quite light still, so it happens really quickly. Once it starts, it's amazing.
Sure does. Yeah, time flies quickly. All the way, really. So, so anything interesting happening in the last few days, or anything you've been thinking about?
Yeah, this morning we had our first meeting about the world citizenship, which is something that I'm growing more and more keen on. I'm really seeing how, because it's a layer that you can add, it doesn't actually challenge anything. It's not like a protest or a resistance, or it doesn't fight with anything. It's just saying, here is this extra layer that you can add to your life to help your mindset to take in the idea that we are all one humanity. And so this world citizenship, it feels like it's the beginning of finding a pathway to how we're going to make this changeover, because we all have lots of good ideas about what it'll be like when we get there, but we have no idea at the moment how to get there.
Exactly. Yeah.
So this, to me, this world citizen is a way to get there. It shows a path of how we can empower individuals, give them sovereignty over themselves, which is the beginning, it feels like, of if there's going to be a system breakdown, there is already something that can provide a structure which unites everybody.
Exactly.
Because there's so much going on at the moment, but in separate silos, all the different, NGOs that are doing so much good, but they're not connected.
Exactly.
So that's my enthusiasm for this world citizenship.
Oh, great. I don't know so much about it, but I like what you say about it, an extra layer on top that it doesn't.
Yeah.
I also
you don't
think
have
that's
to give up anything.
Yeah. Hello, Heiner. How you doing today?
Hi, Heiner.
Hello. I just come in. Are we just the three of us, or who is at the moment in the room besides the elephant?
Well, there's Sam, just arrived.
Hey.
And Tammy is also here.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll be back in a few minutes. So.
Sorry, I didn't wake up in time to walk my dogs.
Right.
I just got back.
Well, Anna, what you just said about the separation and silos, this is my concern since aeons. And we are not going to achieve anything if we don't step back and try to see how the issues connect. And everybody wanted that. And I think now we have Sam for that.
What am I supposed to do?
Connect the dots.
Yeah, I used to like doing that when I was a child. Show me some big dots and I'll connect them.
There's also information overload. I think that's something too in this. There's so many people doing so many things, and it's just a little overwhelming too.
I think that's the problem. If you try to take it all in, or even if you try to connect the dots, I think the dots will connect themselves, actually. If we try to connect them, then we get information overload. But what I see with this world citizenship is we allow everything to carry on the way that it is. They will connect themselves. But we just add this layer of being a member of the human race, being a member of the world citizen. And in that we are connected, all connected. We don't have to do any more than that.
Anna, I am fully disagree. I agree with that we need this extra layer, but we have to do something more. We have to assure which dots on which plane, in which language, on which scale are there, because this metacognitive thing, what I think Sam is aiming at, is making sure that the dots are in context. Otherwise, they are chaotic. And this will not come by itself. But for me, I can only say the world human science establishment 30 years ago, 40 years ago, made a mandate to harmonize information and connect the dots. And that is one of these pillars. I just moved in much, much later. But I think the mandate is there, but it was forgotten, and then suddenly we had the internet. But I'm very happy that I can agree and disagree with you, Anna, because we mean the same.
So do you feel that we have made any progress, Heiner, in that time in connecting those dots? Do you feel there's any progress been made in the last 30, 40 years?
Well, the vision that the problematique, as it was called in 68 by the founding fathers of the Club of Rome, that all these problematiques, all these problem clouds are getting heavier and heavier and connecting deeper and creating more and more chaos. All this insight and vision was there. Since that time, I think we did not achieve much into what we call the solutionatique, not problematic, but solution space. And there, I think we have lost a lot of time and the problems have been building up. But I think we also now have the...
Oh, we have a Heiner glitch.
Hello, Gertraud.
Yeah.
Hi, Gertraud.
Hi, Gertraud.
If I may, I would like to just
wage another war or
Heiner,
another crusade.
You dropped out for about 30 seconds or so.
This is my life. Hi, Tammy.
Heiner, would you like to repeat what you thought you said in the last 30 or 40 seconds?
I don't know. I think I spoke about problematique and solutionatique. So the problematique, as envisioned by the Club of Rome in 68, was all these problems, when we don't tackle them, get heavier and heavier. And we need an approach to go deeper. All these insights were there, and we did not achieve much, and the scales, proportions, consequences got worse and worse and worse. So Anna's question is, do you see any hope on getting better? I think in realizing the problems we have lost, but in the tools and means towards the shared ends, I think we have new tools and new insights to not wage another war, another crusade, like, I mean, the people in Europe have done in the medieval ages, fighting to conquer Jerusalem, or all the American enterprise, waging wars the last 40, 50 years. It's a horrible thing of our limited dualistic mindset. No, I think I have a mixed baggage for you, Anna. I don't have a clear yes or no for you.
Let me, if I may, share a little story. When I was first involved in management training, I guess I went to these management training workshops way, way long time ago, over 30 years ago. The reason I mention it is because there was one exercise that really stood out in my mind. The exercise was this, and I'm sure there are many forms of this, but there were 4 people chosen to stand essentially in a square. And the 2 opposite diagonals, the pairs, were each given a piece of string. Actually, they were all connected together in the middle. And in the middle, there was a knot, and at the knot, there was a hook. And on that hook, there was a little cork or, small little object. And the object was for the 4 of them to manipulate their strings so that they would drop it into this bottle in the center of the square. And there were 2 forms of this exercise. One form was there was a manager standing to the side that was telling each person, A, B, C, D, okay, lower yours, raise yours, bring it in 3 inches, take it out 2 inches, raise it half an inch, whatever. Gertraud probably recognizes this exercise. And in this exercise, with the manager directing each of the 4, they were able to successfully do this, but it took, let's say, on the order of 3 or 4 minutes. to really get this into this object. However, when you remove the manager, but everyone can see and control their own motions and control, what they respond to, but they can actually see the actual progress being made. The result was startling. It was like done in like 5 or 10 seconds. So my point is one to reinforce Heiner's point, which is, yes, we each need to exercise our autonomy, but we need...
This reminds me of a story Gertraud was telling me, I think yesterday. It is about positive feedback. It was about positive feedback and appreciation. If the group were just fed up without a leader or a guru, positive things, then the whole group exercised and was much more successful. And I think it was in rugby or in another competition. But the group cohesion got really got much better through appreciation and positive feedback.
Yeah, I don't know if you actually heard.
Sorry.
Let me just finish the story. Heiner, I don't know if you heard the end of the story, but that was the entire point, was there was 2 forms of the exercise. But my conclusion, or the corollary I extracted from that, which I'm offering here as an insight, is that each of us need our full authority, our full agency, but needs to be exercised in a way where we can actually see what's going on, each of us. If the manager sees, actually all the others saw as well, but the manager was the only one in the first case to empower, to do something. But if we are all seeing and we are all able to make those decisions, that response is much quicker. And so I don't want to lose sight of the fact that the seeing, the sharing the seeing is crucial. See, it's this larger circle within which, in each of the, black, white, each of us is a little dot. But the dot is not enough. We need the bigger circle. So that's the sense in which I think we need to be systemic as well as individually empowered. Over.
The circle is for me the common frames of references, and I think our metaphors as visual metaphors are all the same.
And I think the challenge here, and then I'll just shut up, is that establishing those common frames and metaphors is non-trivial. We have, I agree with Heiner, more tools now with which to do it, especially with the advent of big data and all of the AI, possible machine learning, etc. But it's not sufficient because each of us is going to model the world in some way. And the way we model the world is going to show us what view we offer. And each of us has a different way of modeling the world. And all of those need to be shared, or the crucial ones need to be shared. Okay, done for now.
Well,
I think there's another element.
Please, carry on.
I think big data is like big noise, a very big danger. If we don't get big knowledge, big wisdom, then this noise of the deluge of data is one of the serious problems. So this technical approach only, what we meant with humane information society, has to be considered. Otherwise, we are following just a technical trip down the road. But I think it was Gertraud who wanted to say something.
Yes. Sorry for being late. I missed. I would just jump in that conversation. I think there is another thing. This is like when you're in a hierarchical system, you give part of who you are and what you decide and whatever to others. And so you are not like fully responsible for the outcome. You're just the one who's following orders. And that has a big impact on the way I look at things and I perceive the whole thing. And if I'm responsible for the whole as the others, then we can jointly achieve something. And that's, it doesn't mean that not somebody can say, okay, I take the hat for this project or so, but not as a leader in a way I tell you what to do, but more as the one who is the one who's holding the intention over the long run. And there is something like the connectedness between people. What you said about the 4 people, there were the managers that said, okay, do this and that. And then you don't feel the others. You just follow the rules or the whatever, the orders. But there's another game, and I think that's a real, I'm always flabbergasted when I do it. You have 2 people, and one, let's say, one takes the lead and says, okay, who can say in any order they want any color, say black, red, blue, whatever, and the other one has to follow. So after a while, you don't know who is who. There is a gelling when people, and sometimes it's even so that the one who should follow knows the color first before the other speaks. So it's this we space, may I call it, this space that is bigger than the sum of us, that is more gelled, or whatever you call it. And that makes a difference. So it's like team, this is team beyond, or unity beyond teamwork. It's not the addition of different things, but this special quality. And that makes it 5 seconds compared to 5 minutes. Good teamwork would maybe take 1 minute or so. So there is, I think there is a quality of working together that changes and that gels. And yeah, in the way of being. So fully connected and fully responsible and authentic, or myself. And, yeah.
So this discussion arose out of the fact that I was telling Glenn that we had had our first meeting about world citizenship. So, and I'm connecting this connection, that this we space that you're talking about, I'm connecting that with this world citizenship, this mindset which sees us all as a we, as one. And it makes, I think, a huge difference with how we approach, how we respond to all the different problems in the world. What I would say, I don't know quite what, I haven't seen the development that Heiner has seen, but to me it feels like we have solutions to every problem. And we have probably 6 solutions to every problem. But the main thing is, we don't know how to go from where we are to that place where we can see from where we are, but we can't, there is a big chasm between where we are and where we want to be. And at the moment, we don't see any pathway between. It's like it needs to be a miracle. There is no real, we can't see a practical way to cross. And for me, this world citizenship is a pathway. It is something that is already begun. It is something that we can do, and it is a way to connect. It's not going to solve all the world's problems. Those problems still need to have all the solutions all the separate solutions that are being offered. But we need this extra layer that you called the we space. We need that as the framework, because at the moment, all the solutions are separate silos. Lots of people doing wonderful work, but all separate. And at the moment, there's no one way to bring them together.
I just have a thought that comes to my mind. I think it was even Ken Wilber who said that like Heiner said, technical solutions don't make it. They even can make it worse in the specific human conditions. And he said, like, what made ISIS so dangerous was that they have that middle-age mindset, but weaponized with the most modern weapons on earth and the internet. So they have so many technical solutions to go back to who is not my brother, I need to kill. So I think I just want to make the point that technical solutions alone can bring us in even more danger than before. So we have to develop as persons, as individuals, and as this we thing. And then take the solutions that are appropriate to that. So if we don't develop, technical progress doesn't really help us.
I don't know what you mean by technical progress.
So if, yeah, go ahead.
It doesn't so much matter exactly what the technical issue is, so long as any practical development, whether it's a practice, a tool, an object, an artifact, anything, it has no value on its own. But what it does is it increases the capacity of those who employ it. And if the capacity of those who employ it is directed in a particular direction, then that direction is magnified, okay? So my intent is to try to help people, and I have a tool that allows me to help not just one person, but maybe 10 people. You assign the value to it, but it's just a capacity that I've increased. If a tool allows me to harm one person, but a better tool allows me to harm 10 people, again, you can assign a value. So each of these kinds of evolution is not in and of itself of any particular value. It's just the way that the people deploying them. So anything, whether even the internet, can be used for this or for that. And I'm sure it is being done right now. So this, hooking back to Heiner's point about are we making progress in response to your question, Anna, is that we can see how the tools are being deployed in certain directions and certain other directions as well. But I don't think we have any way to sort of come up with a single metric that says, oh, this is better than that, or this is making more progress than that. It's a multifaceted story, and it's too simplistic to say, oh yes, we are making progress towards good, or we're not making progress towards good. End of rant.
This reminds me a little bit about Jeremy Rifkin, who talks about how the biggest problem today, or the biggest thing we need to overcome is to get into this global mindset. And so technical solutions, well, that's one thing. But what about tools of thinking or perspectives that can help us have this global mindset? That's one issue. And then there's finding my own place in it, and an infrastructure. But I feel like the present paradigm of the technology doesn't especially support the global mindset. Yeah, it's a lot of stuff in all this, of course. But can we say that to create this we space is primarily a psychological challenge? That it's some shift of thinking or paradigm? I mean, you mentioned, Heiner, this duality mindset, and our last talk, Sam talked about not going for these two choices, but trying to find another one. And it occurred to me that was the kind of things that I was thinking when I was younger, without really having many people around me saying it, and I hadn't really formulated it all that clearly. Today, I definitely feel that this is more understood in general, so there has been a shift in the mindset, maybe. At least you've heard this expression othering, probably, to talk about people in this us them categories. It's become a term, and it's just something about it. I feel that if I mention this phenomenon othering now, many people will understand what it means, more so than some years ago. So I don't know, but I have a hopeful view, maybe, that there has been quite some progress in the psychological area, that that maybe we have been moving gradually towards a more world-centric mindset. I don't know.
I agree.
Hold that up. But would you agree that it is primarily psychological? That's sort of the issue, the essence of what we're looking at is something about the mindset of each person?
You know, the psychological is never told from the environment, or from, you could say, from the body, or from nature, or from everything. It's all, you know, they reflect each other. So when something helps the mindset to change, then it also is reflected in the ecology. You know, ecologically, we definitely, I think, are more aware of being one world where, you know, the climate affects everybody in different ways, but we're very aware of being one world in that sense. And that has helped us not, like you say, not to fall into othering, to feel like people on the other side of the world are our brothers and sisters. All of these things, I think, are helping us to feel like we are one humanity. And I feel we've definitely made progress in that direction. But it could just be, like you, my optimism. I don't know.
No, I really do share that. I think that those who are actually asking these questions are, I think, drifting towards the same perspective. I think that what needs to be acknowledged is that there are people with control of resources, typically those are people called powerful, who are trying to slow down, block, or prevent this paradigm shift.
Yeah.
By legislation, by control of press, by control of resources, by specification of rights, everything. So we do make progress towards this perspective, but we need to figure out how to respond to the powers that are actually trying to retain the resources and control for themselves. And if you want to call me a conspiracy theorist, fine. I think I'm okay with that. But it does need to go, in my opinion, acknowledged. Otherwise, we are too naive and will not make much progress. Over.
We might decide that at the moment we don't have the tools, or we don't have the strength or the power to challenge that power. But there are other responses. It doesn't mean we're denying it, but it means that we can work in parallel. We can put the foundations for an alternative, which is, I feel, what we're doing, even though we're not directly challenging the power which you're talking about, which I totally agree with you about that.
Let me interject just one vignette. And do you guys all remember Tank Man? I think it was 1989. The tanks were, rolling into Tiananmen Square in China. And many students were being killed and the riots were erupting. And there was this lone single man who stood in front of this column of tanks and dared them to run him over.
I thought it was a woman, but never mind.
I don't know. Let's call him man, woman. It doesn't really matter for the purpose of this story, right? Is that he didn't have the tools, he didn't have the methods, but he directly represented and was symbolic of an intent that was shared by millions, but no one actually showed that in such graphic, such strong form. I still don't know his or her exact identity, but that picture is burned into my mind. So I don't think we need to consider ourselves ready. I think we have to just make the move. And this is a move. There are many other moves we are each individually making, but we are each making moves. Over.
Okay.
I've seen that picture. I think it's a very famous picture. Just a little thing I want to put into this, and that is that there seems to be forces in operation which sort of protect existing thinking in various ways. I don't know to what degree these forces are conscious, or whether it's more like blind systemic forces, or sort of slowness or fear of change of some sorts. But what has come to me is that if you look at the people in power, the people in positions of power today, my impression is that they don't have an easy life at all. They have enormous responsibilities and pressures and very little free time. Their reputation is, they're continuously being viciously attacked. So it's like, I don't necessarily, if I wanted to look after my self-interests, I wouldn't want a powerful position in the existing system. It would be a lot of hassle. So the point that I want to get to is that I don't think we can really explain this resistance to a new paradigm by people defending their self-interests. Maybe it's a fear of the unknown, but the best system for all people would be a system which was best for all people. Because if I knew that all other people had a relatively good situation, then they would have less reason to create trouble. So there would be more safety. You know, if let's say that you're a person in power and that power is based on other people suffering, that's a very exposed position. So from a purely self-interested point of view, the people in power would benefit very, very much from a paradigm shift to a truly harmonized global society, if we could get to that point. And that's an argument, that's a point of view which I've been thinking about a lot, and I haven't really heard many people talk about it. And the point of view is that if we can only aim high enough, and when I say aim high enough, I mean in terms of quality of living, experience quality of living, and we can try to imagine what a global society would be, which would be not just better than what's been before, but maybe many leaps better, maybe a totally new dimension of quality of living, experience quality of living. That if that could be reached, that would objectively be in the self-interest of all people without exception. And it would be a much easier life for the people in power if they didn't have lots of other people being angry at them for, you know, for good reasons. So, yeah, that's really the. So I don't know what these forces are which go against the paradigm, but it doesn't seem to me they really know what they're going against, so to say. And I'd like to see a little stronger formulations, maybe, of what this global paradigm would look like, with an actual well-functioning global society where each person could bring their unique best to the benefit of the whole and be rewarded by the whole, systematically by it. A part of the problem, as I see it, is that we have this collective mythology, which is very, very strong in our mind, a very sort of negative dystopian mythology. Take a very simple example, science fiction movies. How many science fiction movies do you know that describe a utopian dream future? And how many do you know which describe wars and conflict? I think that's a part of the problem, that we haven't yet developed these stories for what it would really be like if we could make it work. And maybe if we could begin by creating a story which was strong enough, then that could be a beginning, and it might actually create some change in itself. So yeah, that's a big issue, of course, but felt relevant. Put that in.
Glenn, may I jump in? Because I think your words about a collective mythology is really making me jump. Yes, this is what it is about. But can it be one story? Can it be one icon? Or do we need to connect them? I would like to challenge you to think about that there are not only paradigms, but the educator Kühlewind spoke about we need meta-paradigms. A paradigm is a cultural way of thinking in a certain technology, in a certain way or society. But he was urging us to look for how the paradigms connect in the deep. And that's why we with Laszlo created this presentation on a meta paradigm, so that we look from a distance to really see how this commission, this paradigmatic people, all these peoples with their turns and turfs, how they connect. And so going a little bit further to what Anna said, excuse me, I'm just making a tour de raison at the moment. I, again, cannot agree, but I do agree with Anna that we just need to have this extra layer, and then we have the we space, and then everything is okay. No, it is not that simple. If we step back, then we suddenly realize it's not only an I and a you, or a me space, we space, you space, and the other space, but we have to concretely say which context, which environment is this space about. If we don't do that, then we are just getting lost in words. And that, I think, what I heard out of Sam, it is not the problem of the power. It is the problem of the mindset of the power. We have realized with this world rule set reset of the thinkers in the Pentagon, this guy introducing all these incoming generals into what is the new rule set, what is the world looking like, where are the good countries, where are the bad countries, all this dualistic bad thinkings, that we have to question not just the tools, but the mindset behind the tools. And that comes back to you, what you said about how much suffering is involved, what is the infliction of suffering, and that is what I just exchanged with Karl Hebestreit, who was here last time, that these people around Christakis and John Warfield, who were with him at George Mason University in Arlington, they were looking into the happiness and the suffering, our duty and responsibility to look into our mental models, into our mindset, and not go into this oversimplifications. Excuse me, I was again too long, but I tried to sum up a little.
I wanted to go back to a note that Glenn had made about those in power also not having easy lives. Those who are in power, who are visible, are mere puppets. Those in real power have lives that we don't see.
Yeah, that's yeah, I know what you mean. But then, according to that, the people who are really in power are a very small number, right? So it seems to depend on a certain faith in the structure for their power to be retained. So they have a lot to lose in any case, I would say.
And anyway, I agree with Glenn that even those who are hidden behind also don't have great lives, as I would define it. Anyway, I agree with Glenn that, you know, it's not like being in power prevents you from suffering. It's not the same sort of suffering as, you know, living on $1 a day, but it doesn't mean that they have a great life. But so Glenn's idea of somehow attracting them by painting a picture of what it could be like, I somehow my feeling is that they are so convinced that there isn't enough to go round, and that they have to grab what there is, because if they don't, somebody else will get it, because that's what they see in the world. They don't see abundance, they see scarcity. And I think that's why they hold on to this power, because they feel that people need to be controlled. You can't just let everybody do as they want. They have to be, you know, we need the military. We need people to be controlled and to be able to control other countries so that they serve our interests, just like, you know, America does, takes over in order to serve their own interests. And actually, America's not the only one, I guess. There are other countries doing that too. So a bit, but anyway, I'd like to hear Tammy talk, because she hasn't said a word yet.
Gertraud, you had something. You go, and then I will.
Okay, I'm just bringing ahimsa in again. This, like, I think it's also that those who cling to the power, like a deer, a male deer, who has to cling to the power until another fights with it and is strong enough to chase them. So this is a constant way of fear, because somebody else might take over. So you always have to protect that you have achieved. There is no, okay, let's see, like you have, your opponent can't be elected maybe as president, because even the possibility of being defeated is a threat to the whole system. And I think if nobody has to be afraid of the others, whoever that might be in a certain circumstance, then there is a whole new possibility to look at it. And the second thing is the dualist. We have it in, I mean, this is like our default thing. We have it that it's either right or wrong. And if we don't go beyond this and say, where do I go if it's neither wrong nor right? Who am I beyond right or wrong? Or we beyond right or wrong? Then we can have a whole new thinking, and not this either or. And I think the political thing is, it's like a pendulum. When they elected Obama, then the other forces came in and said, "Oh my God," and now it's clinging back. And I think if it's only being against somebody else, it will never stop. Can be more or less, but not just a new realm of possibility. So I'm done.
When I was a little girl, I used to have this phrase in my mind: we can only change the world from where we are. And you know, when Sam was talking about the big picture context and the big pieces, there's a trap that we can jump into there, where we are speaking of big ticket items that are kind of the way that they are, big quotation marks, that affect all of us. And at the same time, there is this new way of being where we are all empowered. And I have a belief that that is true. We are all empowered. Our challenge is the level of noise, in a sense, that we have with everyone being empowered to say and do what they would like to. And at the beginning of the conversation, when I rejoined this morning, there was some talk about power in terms of, and it made me think of how we share power and how important that we do that differently, that we don't use the old paradigm to model the different kind of power that we want, but rather that we do each take our little piece, offer it to the whole so that we're a stronger web. And that's not that easy. Like this is the part that when I talk about building the plane while we're flying the plane, we don't actually we're not well practiced in truly sharing power. And, you know, if I feel into some of the challenges that I've seen unfold here in the Global Challenges Collaboration Group, some of it for me is around power. And I'm not quite sure how to talk about this because I think it's important to have the people that we're talking about present, but I have had some challenges with Neil Davidson, who I deeply, deeply respect. And the challenge was around power because he perceived me and spoke of me as a gatekeeper. And that's fundamentally not how I see myself here, or that I think it models the kind of power that would harm this kind of cooperative development. And so I notice that he's participating but not feeling welcome, and I know I have a role to play there, but I also can't take full responsibility. I can take responsibility for parts of it, but I feel like I need help there, and we need help as a group to figure out how to truly share power and invite people in such a way where they realize or feel like they have the capacity to bring what they have naturally, that there's no one person here that's saying you're in or you're not, or even, and more clearly what he's asked me personally is to let him know when he's needed. And that's not what this is for me, but I don't know how to navigate it, and I've been struggling with it now for a couple of months. And so I'm asking for help, and you know, I'm not saying that I'm right. I'm saying that this is a place where the sharing of power has, I perceive, harmed because we're not quite sure how to do it. And I'm not quite sure how to do it in a way that is really meaningful in each relationship. And this is, part of this is that we can't, I don't feel that we can use the tools that we know in terms of well, this is the way it is, and you know, we have the ways that we have been doing things in the world in this command and control structure, and we're used to that. But how do we actually hold space for people to come and bring what they have and who they are without the old style frame of power structures? So these are some of the questions that I hold. And I think that this is some of the really, really sort of soft skills that are needed to be built to be able to hold us better and to help to invite the collective intelligence and collective capacity that we have as a group in a way that makes sense socially and with our hearts and bodies. So I'll let that rest there and pass the mic.
Yeah, quickly, I will want to thank you for mentioning that, because I think it's important. Been a little on my mind too, because Neil has written several things on the Facebook group and several diagrams, and he has, you know, very much to bring. And I wanted to answer and go into it, but I feel this is a version of the smart people problem, actually. And it's important that we look at this, because if we can figure this out, it's important, because it's, yeah, there's so many of us who have so many things that we want to bring in, and I've also felt this, that some things that I've written, that I worked on, and then no one answers it, and but for me it's a little differently, because I've been part of these conversations, so it's a little differently, but it's something that has to be figured out somehow. I relate this to the smart people problem for some reason.
Can you define that, Glenn, what you mean by the smart people problem?
Well, it's actually, I mean, I think it was Sam who said this, but I mean, there's, I see it very much as a question of time and space and attention and energy, and sort of finding a space where each person can feel appreciated, and they can feel that when they put something into this, it's actually received, and it's not just a waste of time. Yeah, it's I see it very much in terms of time, energy, attention, and I don't really know what the answer is, but I think it's very important that we try to figure this out. But I want to say one thing. I mean, this is a big project working on here, so we'll have to expect that it's not going to be very easy. I mean, so I think this is a big problem, and maybe Sam has something to say about it, but I think it's a big problem, and not a problem, but a big challenge. It's good for us to look at it. If you can figure something out concerning this, that would be a breakthrough, as far as I can tell. That's really what I want to say.
I'll add just one more note on that. I think, Glenn, I really appreciate you at least putting it in that context, but it's particularly exasperated when we're talking about smart people coming together, because smart people have many insights, and through consideration of those insights, they have many potential solutions. So their agendas are full. Their priorities are long lists. Their time is already scheduled 120 or 150%. So for smart people to come together, each of whom is already occupied 150% of the time, it is a huge difficulty for one of them to carve out the 5% or 10 or 20 or 30% really required to really understand another person's volume of work. And that's just between two people. Imagine what it's like now when we scale that to even just the 6 of us, or the 80 or whatever that are already in the GCC or beyond. How do we each truly understand what each is capable of contributing, and then relating to that, and then actually resonating with that and supporting that, and then possibly creating something larger out of those multiple different pieces. That's really, you know, the emphasis behind what I'm calling the smart people problem number one. There are several smart people problems. Over.
I have a problem with the smart people expression per se. Not that I don't think that there are not smart people and that their contribution is really important and welcome. And I think if it should work for everyone, it's something where ordinary people with ordinary problems and solutions are also welcome. So it's not about expertise in per se, about the experts and the we have now in Germany, we adopted that universities that get special money, elite universities and things like that. And for me, this is like, no, it's about connection. It's about, I told you I don't know if I told you the story about the guy who killed the ants and cockroaches and I don't know what in the kitchens I was in charge of in the nursing homes. And when we reconstructed, he came and said, "Why didn't you talk to me? You should have just put the dishwasher more apart from the wall, then you could have cleaned it better," and things like that. So it's like my and everybody's contribution is welcome. It's like not for each and every problem and each and every person has to say anything and things like that, but like it's about people, not about elites who can solve the world's problems. I don't think that happens. They have tried very hard. They're still trying. And yeah, that's one part that I have a problem with. Second, I forgot I can jump in again.
No, I want to thank you for saying that, because my naming of this, the smart people problem, was intended to be pokey. And you're the first person that's called out that particular way of naming this problem. But I also want to reference the fact that, you know, all of us understand what we understand, and what we don't understand, we just say is irrelevant. And so we each think that we're smart. That really is a different form of the smart people problem, but that's been formulated by other people. And then the second thing is I will offer an approach to what I'm calling the smart people problem. And it's really just two simple elements, maybe three, but let me say the first two, which I think are probably sufficient, but the third I think is very, very good to have. The first two compose of eliminating urgency, which is counterintuitive, and secondly, adopting generosity. I think if we do that, and then throw in the third, which I borrow from the Dalai Lama, which is compassion, that much of the malaise we find ourselves in regarding even the smart people problem, but other problems, will quickly become manageable. But we have this sense of urgency, each of us. Even here in this group, we see, oh, geez, you know, the world's coming to this wall. And if we allow that urgency to keep us from really making sound decisions and taking shortcuts, it's the taking of shortcuts that creates more problems. So I think we have to eliminate that sense of urgency. That doesn't mean there isn't an urgency. We got to eliminate that sense of urgency that causes us to act in ways that we know later are not optimal. be generous, to really share solutions and craft solutions together and not just say, hey, come join my team. And third, to really use compassion to drive a lot of it. Let me just finish by saying, I don't know how this fits yet with this Taoist picture where it's patience, simplicity, and compassion that are the three ultimate values and principles. But maybe urgency is patience, that theme there. And generosity, I don't know. Generosity and simplicity don't actually map together real well yet. So anyway, I'm in this little morass of generosity, compassion, simplicity, lack of urgency, and now I forget what I said. So.
That was good.
Yeah, thank you, Sam. That's really great, and I think the generosity, I would add another meaning to it. What Glenn said, talked about giving something and nobody responds. That sometimes is really frustrating. But if we are coming from this place of like a flower doesn't think who might smell it. I just want to contribute, and then I do. And it could be that it's too early, that others cannot reflect on it, that they don't understand it, that they, whatever, are occupied with other stuff, that the time is not ripe yet. But it's, what is my contribution? What do I want to give to the world? What is my genuine, why I'm here, I could say. So, am I a rose, a tulip, or whatever? And so this natural giving of who I am to the world without expecting a response that this is like giving with but you need to give me back. And so I would expand that generosity to something like, if I'm truly expressing myself, my contribution is not I just do it because I want to, because I need to, because this is who I am. And so I'm not this do or debt. So I give, but only if you do too. Yeah.
I think this is the other side of appreciation, because it's interesting that you have this book about appreciation, but when somebody complains about not being appreciated, it doesn't sit right. There is some sort of a lack of maturity, I would say. Maybe that's very judgmental. It's a lack of maturity that doesn't appreciate that other people have other concerns and can't always give the attention that we would like. So it's really sharing, it's really allowing other people to have their own lives. And particularly, Tammy, I'm glad you've come back, because I feel that somehow you've been carrying this alone for some reason, that somehow you felt it was your problem. And that doesn't feel right. Mm-hmm. This particular case that you've brought up, it feels very much that is one particular person. And it doesn't, to me anyway, it does not it doesn't describe a general situation. It's very particularly one particular person who has been complaining in that way. And not just complaining, but almost blackmailing. And we've spoken about it before, and my feeling is you can't bend over backwards for people who make those sort of demands. Like I'm saying about appreciation, we want to appreciate people, but if somebody is not appreciated, if they complain about that, that's a very different situation. For me, that is a lack of maturity, a lack of being able to take in a wider perspective that other people have lives which don't always produce the sort of response that you want.
I'm going to jump in, just a couple things. First of all, when my video goes off, it's because I'm cruising around the house and I don't want you guys to have to like see this action. But I'm almost always present to hear when my video's off. I don't think you guys need to see me go to the bathroom, for example, and last for 3 hours or so. So just so you know, I'm listening and present. And I want to lean back into what Sam has, I love it, Sam, how you put little triggers into your stuff. So the smart people problem, I think, is at the fundament of what it is that we are learning in terms of sharing power, attention, and Anna, thank you too for bringing in some of those and noting that, yes, I'm talking about, my experience with Neil, but I do see that this is global to us, that the way that we figure out how to share our knowledge and wisdom is in fact the heart of what we're looking to do, so that we have the capacities and abilities to be able to do the work. So I see it as something that is deep in the heart of what we're here to learn. And I don't know at all of how. I feel like I can feel how, but that we are in this context where we've been all inculcated with this, power and control and these ways of being, that we know there's a different way. So what I have used is curiosity and listening and holding space and the practice to try to understand, and using appreciation. It's been so beautiful to know Gertraud and see the ways that she just lives that in her life. So there's part of this that is like, as we can feel and incorporate the superpowers of each other, that we are stronger. But there's something about being one piece, linking arms with each other in such a way that the power is completely distributed. And I don't think that we know necessarily how to do that. But we're learning, and we know what it doesn't feel like. And I feel that it's the heart. It's the heart of the problem, because not only is it how we actuate our collective intelligence, that's the human part. How do we receive each other? How do we support each other? How do we appreciate each other? How do we draw boundaries where we feel we need them? And how do we hold more? I'll just finish with this. I was speaking, Sam, one of the things that I've really appreciated about this group is that both Anna have agreed to be supports for me. So I've had one-to-one conversations with them both fairly regularly, and that kind of, generosity on both of their parts has allowed a deeper weaving. And I have been kind of going over, because there's some tensions between Sam and I in the way that we are, but we love each other and we know each other's value, and we're committed to figuring out what are those little irritations, what that are coming up that are blocking the free flow of how we are collaborating. And it's not okay, well, maybe they're just irritations for me, Sam. But I need to be real about that. While I put my hand up and say I'm not perfect and I want to work on this, because I can feel that it's in the way. And it's part of the human capacities to be able to hold space for the incredible gifts that we all are and bring to the table. So anyway, those are some thoughts, and I will be fully present, but we'll go off camera.
I have to say that I don't see this as a general problem in the group.
I don't agree with that. I disagree, Anna.
Yeah, I know that you and Tammy both see these as a problem, but nevertheless, I'm saying I don't. Okay, you carry on.
I'll be short, but I'm not saying it's a general problem, but I think this can be a general problem. I think this is something to take seriously with this kind of work. I could see something like this come up in different forms later, because if I'm participating in something, it's very important to have this feeling that what you put in is being somehow received or somehow useful. And if you don't have that feeling, if you don't really know, it's that can be discouraging. And I'll be quick, but it's just like this kind of work will draw certain types of people who have many ideas, and that's a particular
I just think
problem.
that Tammy, sorry.
Yeah,
I just think Tammy is talking about something else. She's not talking about that. She's talking about power and this feeling of how do we manage power. You are talking about something else. You are talking about having this feeling of being appreciated. To me, those are not the same.
They're not the same, but they're connected. Because the thing is that each person here is only able to, we only have the time and energy that we have. So as we are participating, if our stuff isn't received, then the space isn't being held to bring that collective energy together. And I see that as a power dynamic. It doesn't have to be seen that way. Others may see it a different way. But in the soft science of receiving our gifts, such that they can be appreciated and used, which is the when we use each other's stuff, it gives it value. So if we're having some stoppage points in the receiving of people's work, then that's a problem in the system, as I see it. But I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, that's what I meant too. I felt much like that.
I would like to come back to what Sam said. Sorry, this, you talked about smart people problem, but it's just, I think, normal engaged people's problems. It's like the sheer volume of what gets posted every day in different groups. I mean, this is not the only one where I need to somehow be connected. And I really get that sometimes it's just, I'm happy to be here twice, sometimes once a week, and beyond that, I don't want to have a commitment, not even for this. So it's not that I don't want to read it, and sometimes it's like I'm scanning through, and then I go deeper into this or that, and I don't see if it's Glenn or whoever posted it. And it doesn't mean that at a certain point it's like a flame or something, like it gels and let's do it, and then we work 2 days fully on something. So it's, for my part, it's not that I don't want to appreciate it, but I cannot go through each and everything and be there all the time and respond. And it doesn't mean that it's not valued. I think sometimes I just go back and say, oh, now I see what you did, and before maybe I just didn't get it. So I just, for me it's to be committed and free at the same time. That's for me important.
So you feel that somebody is asking you for a commitment here. And I feel that that is what Glenn is expressing, and what Tammy is expressing is a guilt at not being able to somehow hold the whole thing so that everybody feels that they are heard. I feel they're very different. I don't feel that Glenn is expressing that sort of responsibility which Tammy feels about holding the whole thing so that everybody feels heard. What I get from you, Glenn, is a feeling that you want that hearing, you're asking for it, and it's not that you feel you don't have the capacity to give it. So it's coming from almost the opposite direction from Tammy, I would say.
Could you elaborate that? Because it's interesting to hear what you mean.
Well, what I hear you saying is that you feel that people, you empathize with those people who feel that they're not getting the attention that they feel they need. So when you put something on Facebook or when you talk about it here, you feel that people are not appreciating, so that you're not able to really go into the whole thing as you would like to do. Maybe you would really like to go into it in a lot more detail. But that isn't what Tammy is saying. Tammy is saying she feels responsible for giving that time, making sure that the group holds the space for people like you to be able to express what you want to express.
Yeah. It's just, so what I don't know if it's like, I totally understand this issue that there's limited time and attention available, and that's sort of the problem that we have to maneuver here. So I don't really know what my opinion is on this, but I just feel that this is an important issue here. It's important to figure out a good way of dealing with it, because this is something that I could see come up again and again, and it's something about feeling that whatever you're doing, it's being valuable somehow, and that if you feel that it's in some kind of way it brings value, then that helps a lot. I don't know what the answer is, but I really liked what Sam's suggestion of not rushing it with patience and compassion, and I kind of feel that's a part of the solution. The main point I wanted to make was I think this is a very important issue. I don't think it's trivial, and I think it's a sort of systemic issue for these kinds of processes. Yeah.
I'm going to try a metaphor. Let's imagine we're all sitting around a living room, and each of us, Gertraud, are you asking something?
I didn't hear the word. We are all sitting?
Yeah, let's say we're all sitting around a room, and perhaps we're at a dinner party, and each of us has brought some food, whether it's cookies or lemonade or cake or whatever it is, okay? And in that way, each of us is welcome to bring something. And if I choose not to eat the beef Wellington, or, if you choose not to eat my peas, that's just the way parties go, and that's one way of having a space where each of us is bringing something and each of us is either being appreciated or not. And let's call that scenario the first scenario. There's a second scenario where, let's say, all of the 6 of us are doing barn raising. Okay, so we're all there, neighborhood has come together, we're here with carpentry tools and wood and others. And if I bring some lumber and others need that lumber, it's going to get used. If I bring the lumber and somebody rejects that lumber, then we don't have a way unless somebody else brings that lumber. Likewise, if I bring a hammer and somebody else has an electric hammer, maybe that electric hammer is more useful to the group than my simple handheld hammer. So the point I'm really trying to get at is, when there's not a larger construct that depends on these contributions, then the simple contribution model applies. But when there's a more intended result, kind of a more intention or construction or a program or an initiative or a project or a house that wants to get built, dare I say, a community that wants to get built, then the contributions of each, when each of us brings, they say, this hammer or these nails or this lumber or this window could help make this room better. Why is it not being used in this room? That's what, Glenn is feeling. That's in some part, what I'm feeling. That's what, Tammy is holding space for. So I think there are 2 different ways to look at this. And the question from day one has always been, are we sitting around the room having a tea party, or are we really trying to build something? And I think, some of us have been asking that from the very first day. And if we're not trying to build something, then Glenn and I and others, we should probably, feel less strongly about our contributions not being accepted or recognized. And Tammy probably needs to feel less strongly that she needs to hold space for that. Over.
Sam, I really like your metaphor, and I offer some chocolate for everybody. and I really enjoyed to be with you, and I didn't went to the loo, so I stayed on with 2 identities. But what I wanted to say is really what Tammy was pointing at. So am I involved when I'm asked to come? I had all these finance people of the world coming, call me and give me the 3 biggest problem of the world, and we throw all the money there is into these holes, and normally this money was burned. So actually, what are we doing here? I really enjoyed. I really felt I have to be here, even when technical matters make me have two images, one for the seeing you all and for one to be with you also with audio and still doing my cooking. I feel sometimes we have to do the cooking also, and not only you see me cooking. So the whole challenge we are facing here is how to bring different cycles of actions, different timings. If you know the back oven and the cooking, you know it's all about time and precision and recipe. So I think the urgency and the restlessness I'm seeing in this group is very great. I think we should address issues like call me when I'm needed. This is the same like mother would not tell to her children. This is all very, very exciting. I enjoyed to be with you, but I had to eat before because I'm now dashing out. It's always the wrong time when you call me, especially 5 o'clock in the afternoon, even on weekends, it's difficult. Maybe let us meet when it's here midnight and you old people can be more awake, like our friends from New Zealand or Tokyo. Over and out for now. And I love you all, and I share the sweeties alone.
No, yeah. Yeah. Hi, Heiner. I have to offer a third metaphor. And this is, I don't know if you know the story of the nail soup. So there was a little film some many years ago. There's a lady coming into a house, moving into a house, and neighbors don't talk to each other. And then she one day she's going to everyone and says, "Oh, I'm new here and I'm cooking a nail soup and I just need a little bit of vegetable or so. Can you bring something to? Because I need your help." So everybody is bringing something. There, I don't know how many people in the house, and she has this on the stove. She has this pot with one single nail and just water, and everybody just puts the vegetable and whatever they bring to the party with them, and they create together a wonderful soup and eat it then on the whole house. So maybe I'm not the best storyteller, but for me that was like, we don't know who is bringing what, but I facilitate that water, that pot on the stove with the nail in it, and let's see what happens. So it's not, we need to do a specific thing with a specific recipe, and I think that's time for that as well, to have a good dinner in a specific way. And the potluck with a buffet or so. But maybe we are more like a nail soup. And they had a lot of fun afterwards when they ate it, and nobody knew what's going to come out. And to have, so I think trusting the outcome is for me another thing I want to contribute. Just trusting that it's good for being together and talking about this, and somehow there will be a wonderful magic soup.
So I want to invite all of you here. Let's set a date. I have a big pot, and I'm not even going to figure out what we each want to bring. But I really suggest that we do this, because I think that, you know, I could decide to throw in 2 pounds of curry into a small pot. And somebody may come with, 5,000 potatoes, but we may only need 3. So I suggest that there's still some communication and still some coordination that's still going on to make that soup palatable. And I make the point about the curry because some people actually don't enjoy curry in their soup. So it is a good story, but I think it is an insufficiently described scenario. It is an idealistic story. I like the message of the story, but there are second and third order effects there that I think are too easily dismissed, which I think we will quickly find out if we make it ourselves.
And we are making it ourselves. I mean, any metaphor is just showing a way a framework to look at something. So
Yes.
we are all bringing these different pieces. And part of what I'm looking to understand for ourselves is, how do we receive them? How do we make sense of what we're bringing so that we have the right elements in the right order? So that what it is that we're creating is consciously created. One of the tools that I think we're looking to develop in these conversation spaces where we are looking to understand the deeper part of what we're bringing, what our we space wants to hold, and what's emergent from that space. And it's not, none of it is simple. It all tests assumptions that we have around the way the world works and pushes back against those big ticket items that you were talking about, Sam, in terms of the powers that be, because the command and control version of reality, the extractive mentality that informs the way our corporations work, these are all the sort of big pieces that we are creating a different way of being to inform the systems that we need to hold us differently and to be and to live the new paradigm as we are trying to figure out how to support each other in doing that. And the other piece that I think is really beautiful is that, you know, we have been investing all of this time in knowing each other. Like, there is a deep commitment that's been demonstrated by many, many people here to give the time and the space to be able to understand and to be able to test our assumptions and have the courage to ask the questions when we don't understand. And all of these things, I think, are building our capacity to be able to build something together in the right order, using the right elements.
Making the recipe up as we go.
According to what's showing up.
Okay, the 2 weekends surrounding July 4th of this year. Okay, let's just put a date. Okay.
This year, yes, that's
Whoever
right.
can come, fly into Seattle Tacoma Airport, and whoever can make it, let's make some soup.
Well, I do have the problem that I can't cross the border, so I love that idea, but I'm just putting a pin in that.
Like I said, Tammy, I have to smuggle you in. Okay.
I'm afraid of your president.
I see two people who actually feel quite unserved by this session. And I feel like Tammy and Glenn are both really expressing something very important for them, very deep. And I just feel, I see disappointment in their faces, because we do have the faces.
Like, can I answer? I'm not so, well, I mean, I think it's important. I'm not that disappointed, really, but it's like, this is difficult stuff, you know? So I'm glad that we're looking at it. But one thing I want to say is that if we consider one of the major global challenges today to be communication and the ability to talk about big, difficult questions, then what we've been doing so far is actually to work on the solution. So even if we only meet 2 days a week, if that's all we do, I still see that as incredibly valuable. Don't get me wrong, it's incredibly valuable. So this has not been a waste of time at all. No way. And we created media out of it, which we haven't even begun looking into, all the gold which is there. So already it's incredibly valuable. But I also feel that this could be so much more, and that this is a process which really invites into something great. And I feel that there's something really great which is called for, and which is a potential in what we're doing here. So I wouldn't say it's not disappointment or anything. I mean, it's not, it's complex stuff, but I just think it's important. I really love the fact that we can take these difficult questions and just talk openly about it and look at it, and that's okay. And I have a really good feeling about that. That we can just, if someone has a problem, we can just look at it, and there's always something to learn. And just what we're doing already is really valuable. And yet, at the same time, we can do so much more. No question about it.
I feel intrigued by our conversation, because we are talking here one time on abilities, sometimes on attitudes, sometimes on availabilities. So my disappearing, or no, Tammy's disappearing, me sometimes else disappearing on a certain monitor is a way that we are sometimes not a moment available. But we have the attitude and the interest, and some of us have here and there some abilities to how to all juggle all these three things together. That is a challenge. We have so many great guys who want to be paid by second or by minute, and others are available all the time, but they are totally unproductive and even harmful for the product or the project. So this juggling is what we are doing here. I call it in another environment embryonic, is really a steep challenge. Tammy, when I learned to know you 1.5 years ago, I said, no, I don't have the time. And I still feel now I don't have the time. But I'm happy to be with you. And again, finally, for tonight, I say bye-bye.
So I just want to also...
Bye, Heiner.
Bye, Heiner.
Have a great evening.
I wanted to respond to Anna feeling disappointment. I think I don't feel disappointed. I feel really grateful to be able to get to be more honest about what my experience has been, so that I'm not carrying it alone, right? And this is the nuts and bolts of the difficult stuff. And so the more that we can focus on it and really be honest about how it's landing on us, owning our, I own my own imperfections. It's not, what I've experienced is not anyone's fault, but rather an expression of what it is to really work together across difference and across silos, and how do we do that. So part of what I'm experiencing is a deep knowledge inside myself that we are stronger together. But what are the capacities we need to be able to hold each other's work and hold each other's persons such that we can actually hear each other and actually receive what is being given. So if in talking about that in this group, this is gold. And really, where I don't know what the answer is, this group, our group, needs to look at it from all different angles so that we can actually understand what's happening, because I can't see it all. And I can only share honestly what I've been experiencing. And it's difficult because I don't want to call anyone out. You know, that feels like a potential harm to our group. And you know, these are perhaps, as Sam was saying in our private conversation, kindergarten level stuff to deal with. But, you know, I think that some of the challenges that we face are so interwoven in the way that we understand the world that we have to go back to kindergarten to relearn, you know, how to be with each other and how to do us differently, as Doug would say.
So I've been trying. Oh, sorry. So I have 4 separate thoughts I wanted to bring up in response to several things that have been said. So let me say each of them as shortly, as briefly as I can. This idea of gatekeeping, Tammy, it may be that someone feels that you are gatekeeper, or you may feel that being accused of gatekeeper, but in reality, each of us has the power to accept what's going on, and each of us has the power to respond to it. So we are all here acting as gatekeepers. Just like, you know, Glenn says, you know, we have each, for better or for worse, decided not to follow up on some of his contributions. We all decided to do that, for better or for worse, whether consciously or unconsciously. So that gatekeeping role is incumbent actually on each of us who've been empowered. And since we are all trying to be as equal as possible, you know, each of us has the power to do that. So that's idea number 1. Second, Anna, if you're putting Glenn in the role of being disappointed by this particular conversation, even though he says he's not, even though I don't see myself as that, I would like for you to lump me into that group with Glenn and probably Neil and probably others, because, you know, there's certain contributions I would love to see further developed and further discussed within the group. I myself am rather patient and, you know, not feeling a sense of urgency about it. But, you know, I'd love to, you know, talk about how-tos, how to talk about the community of impact, talk about values, talk about the Me Too conversation, talk about global sim, talk about Doug Engelbart. But I'm patient and hoping that all of that will come at the right time. And about calling people out, I want to actually hope that we distinguish between calling people out versus expressing disagreement. I think at times some of us have felt that disagreement was calling people out, and I hope that we don't see them as the same thing. And then my last idea is this one, Anna, that you brought up about maturity. When we are a small group, we may want to interact solely with those whom we feel are emotionally stable or mature. And we each don't even yet have a common understanding of what that means. But if in Tammy's frame, if we're actually trying to incorporate everyone's contributions, we cannot expect everyone to be at the same level of emotional maturity. Everybody's on a different growth path. Everyone's at a different stage in whatever that turns out to be. So there's this conflict, and I'm not going to point it as a sucker's choice. I'm trying to say, let's create something else above those 2 simple extremes where we can deal with different stages of people's ability to communicate or, you know, express their emotional state, and at the same time figure out how to incorporate people's contributions, and let's see if we can craft that together. Those are my 4 ideas. I haven't actually put them all together that well, but I just wanted to do that as quickly as possible for now.
I'd like to chuck a spanner in the works. Sorry, Anna, I know you want to jump in, but I want to just chuck a spanner in the works. And I think you might like this, Anna, which is the tyranny of agreement. And the other way that we may be able to conceive of that in terms of opting in terms of choosing what your level of participation and engagement is according to a personal-centered self-care place, and choosing to participate in the way that you know you can. And it's different from we all agree that we are X, Y, and Z, and therefore, because I think that group, and there's a tension around how we have been creating our community in terms of knowing all those things and putting a pin in all of those things first. And I am concerned about the tyranny of agreement, because I think that shuts down a lot of the potentiality that is here. Our assumptions around things that are informed by the broken systems that we've all been a part of all of our lives mean that those contexts are sneaking in as Trojan horses into our new paradigm without being recognized as problems, because they're just the water we're already swimming in. So I just wanted to put some of those pieces in there as well, because it's part of the tensions that we're navigating as we're each deciding how we will participate. And I think that sovereignty, that individual sovereignty, is critical, so that people, at the end of the day, I only have control over my time and attention, really. So what Gertraud was talking about when she was saying, I can commit to, the 1 or 2 times a week, and but reading all of the links and incorporating all of the stuff that's happening on Facebook, maybe not so much. In terms of my own participation, I know that at a certain point, when my several crises manifested in my life that are still ongoing but have calmed down a little bit, that I wasn't able to really participate on the Facebook threads. On the Facebook threads and in those discussions, and I feel that gap, and I wanted to be able to have the time and attention, but it wasn't what was actually happening for me at that moment. And I think that it is important for each of us to have the sovereign space to choose how we participate, and that's also fundamental in terms of a new way of being within this paradigm that could bear consideration as a group.
We do sovereignty. There's no getting away from it. That's what Sam is saying, really. We already have that. I just wanted to come back, Sam, about why I didn't include you in the being disappointed, because I feel that somehow you actually manifest both the disappointment and the responsibility of providing, which is what Tammy is, it seems to me, manifesting the responsibility, and Glenn is manifesting the disappointment. That's how I'm seeing it at the moment, but it's that's very black and white. But what I see that the two of you, Glenn and Tammy, are really manifesting very sort of, in a way, opposite but complementary roles. And if you could combine them, as I feel Sam is doing now, this is probably very manipulative, and you probably need to just ignore this altogether. Okay, I finished.
Love it.
For what it's worth, I'm choosing to take that as a compliment.
Yeah,
I would.
it was actually.
One little thing was, I really feel a part of what is needed is to have a space where everyone can be exactly who they are. Like when you said that, Anna, about me, I don't even know if I agree or disagree, but you said that was your impression right now. That impression is real. It's a real experience, and you're sharing it. And that is the only reason why that should be taken seriously and should not be discarded. And I feel that with everything, that it's needed a kind of space where people can say whatever they say, plain and simple. And it's their responsibility. We each are responsible for what we bring. And then, but the common space, it really needs a sort of radical openness for all perspectives. I feel that's very important. And then if each of us can take responsibility for what we bring, then that will be the factor which will, weed out what is more relevant, less relevant, etc. But I don't see any situation where it's necessary for me to devalue what anyone else has brought, and I don't see that as a part of this sort of conversation. Actually, it's like if it's important enough for them to bring it, then it's important enough for me. It's like
no, Glenn, you could just completely what's the word? Discard whatever I say. You have total right to do that because you are a sovereign being. What I say could be total crap. You have to face that as a possibility.
That's what I mean. I think
Okay.
that's what I mean. It's like you say what you say, and if I hear it, I'll try to understand it as well as I can, right? But the fact remains that you said it, and the fact remains that we have the perspectives we have, and there's a sort of reality to it, to what each person brings. It's actually their point of view.
But you don't have to respect it just because it's there.
Well, okay, I'll just say very quickly. Maybe I can respect it as their point of view. I don't have to agree or disagree.
Okay.
And my quick comment is that part of what I feel we are building is respect for each other. Maybe not agreement, but respect for each other in terms of just, we like each other. We respect what we're all bringing to the table, and that what we say has relevance. If someone chooses to say it, then the baseline of respect is to consider it.
What she said, I think that, this right, yes, I think we're all granting each other the right to disregard that. But as the community strengthens, because we value each other so much, the fact that someone says something, let's say Gertraud says XYZ about me, my right is to disregard it. But because I'm part of this community and Gertraud's part of this community and she's been showing up and she's been integral and she's been, foundational, my responsibility, my choice is to see what compelled Gertraud to say that about me. And that's the kind of generosity that goes along with holding this space for each other. So yes, Glenn can perfectly disregard, and I can perfectly disregard. But the fact, Anna, that you said something about me says, wow, I really want to think about this and how I'm showing up so that she gets this impression.
So I'd like to just jump in with a bit of a meta reflection in terms of the GCC and also my contribution. Part of what I'm so deeply grateful for is that all of you and those who have been joining have been using this process of self-reflective, generative conversation to be able to look at how we can collaborate. That is huge. So, I mean, that was the center of what I put into the proposal. Now, it's not fully fleshed, it's not fully operational. Those pieces around having one-on-ones that are surfacing individual people's work and those things, I will be able to spend more time doing that part of it. But this thing that we've been doing is huge because I have all of these beautiful people bringing themselves to test this space and what it can do, and the capacity that this space has for bringing together difference across silos, understanding each other, kicking the wheels of what collaboration looks like. I'm deeply, deeply appreciative and gratified that has been carried forward by this group. Now, back to the disappointment in terms of Neil not participating with us. His work was in the center of what global governance would look like. So it absolutely makes sense for that to be included in us moving forward. And so I'm trying to figure out how to include, because I feel the need to create those spaces. And I see I see that it's a place where I've been challenged, and it's challenged my identity, and because specifically what he wanted was to be heard, and specifically what I want to give is to hear. So it misaligns in terms of my fundamental identity. So it's hit me kind of hard. And yet I don't feel that I have the capacity to navigate it just one-on-one. I've made some attempts, but it hasn't worked yet, because I feel like I need some support there. I don't know what I'm saying exactly, but the main point is that I'm deeply grateful that we're doing this to be able to grow what we need together as a group. And it is beautifully ironic that what I've described as a challenge between Neil and I is just a fundamental piece of how there's some of this going on, where we're missing, there's a gap.
Well, you've asked for help, and I'm wondering if anybody can offer help.
I wonder in which way you think.
Yeah.
Well, I have tried to reach out one-to-one, but I feel that the fundamental understanding between both of us of what happened is not understood, so that I feel like even one person who would be willing to work with us to reflect where we're not seeing each other may help, if he's willing.
So for the record, I have actually agreed to do that. And so I think both parties have to be willing, or all three parties have to be willing for that conversation to happen. And if that's not the case, then if what you're asking is for one of us to really invite as a third party that conversation, I'm willing to do that. And I'm sure it looks like others are as well.
I think right relationship is for me to ask.
Agreed.
Would it help to have two other people? rather
Maybe.
than one.
Maybe
So-
he would like to invite someone that he knows. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
very likely.
So Tammy, you choose whom. What do you, I mean? You know us good enough by now. so when you ask him that, you just feel like what would make the most sense and what person would be the best one to add, or maybe two, or yeah. So choose and look what's the best part to do. I don't know, Neil, so I don't have a clue what that would mean, but I'm willing to offer my support if you can use it.
Thank you. Okay, I will reach out to him and let him know as well that we talked about it in our session today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, this is the whole time that goes through my mind, because there's so many, there's so much information about this and that, and so many different tools and this and that. The sheer number is overwhelming. So I think it's not an intellectual problem. I mean, we could have a computer that can summarize everything or so, but I think I'm not sure what, but for me, this is the question, when to have that fundamental attitude, I would say, of appreciation or of humanness. And starting, I think appreciation starts always with myself. If I exclude myself, it doesn't work. And it includes, in the radical sense, it includes everything and everyone. So starting with that attitude, and then how does that look like? It couldn't be only an intellectual effort to bring all the information together, but where is this, like, when does it come to practical work and actually doing the things? And where is it more on the receptive end, to not get the information in, but get the juice of it? I'm stumbling my words on my way, but for me, it's I get many people, they talk very softly and or generically, and then when it comes to doing the work, then it's going the old way. And how to create a space in which that being comes along with the doing. So that I think that's, for me, that's the challenge. Not gathering the information per se. I think that's doable somehow. I don't know if that makes sense what I said, but for me, that's a big challenge.
And that makes sense for me. I feel that's a bit what we're doing here too, and because what my experience has been is that when I've talked to people about some of these greater global questions, sometimes there can be some strong emotional reactions and things can come up. And I think we will have to expect that to happen in this kind of collaboration. So if we can figure out a way to deal with it as it comes up and talk about it and figure out a way to meet it when it comes up, that's very big. I mean, that is big, important work. It's maybe one of the most important parts of the process, because these subtle emotional things, they are very impactful. So I think it's not a waste of time at all that we're going through it like this, and that we're not rushing. That's what Doug also said. Shouldn't it's something about the foundation and figuring out a way to talk about it and try to figure it out as it comes up. That's a big part of the work which needs to be done on a global scale. And if we can learn more about how to do it well during conversations like this, we're actually doing a lot of that work, and we're creating an example which can be replicated later and improved. So it's very valuable.
I think you're talking about presence, really, and trust, and the way that you said it, bringing the being along with the doing. I think that's a beautiful way to express it. And it seems to me that there is constant vigilance, is the wrong word, but it's consciousness, isn't it? It's really being conscious of what we're doing and bringing that consciousness with us. And of course we miss a lot of the time, we lose that connection, and then we realize it a bit later. But that is what we're trying to do, to bring that consciousness, that presence to whatever we do.
I wrote a notice to Tammy, and then I realized she wasn't in that meeting, or I don't know what. But in Women Matters, there was a lady in there who created that word or double word, conscious human flocking, and she had a very decisive thing. So she has laid out it, and we were all overwhelmed, and so she left. And I'm just thinking I would like to go back to that, and if I grasped it, what she wanted to say, I could share that, because this consciousness, this flocking, not so where everybody just takes a lead once in a while and then goes back into the row, and so supporting each other, giving wind support for each other, but that in a conscious way. And actually I tried to go through, but she was so far beyond what we could grasp at that moment, that she was disappointed with us. And maybe this is time to just take that piece and grasp it, and maybe even bring her in here.
Sorry, Tammy, I just want to go, just something that either you or either Gertraud or Glenn said about using this, that we're this is the work that we're doing, and somehow people will be able to use it. It feels to me like everybody has to do this work for themselves. It's a very personal thing, and it's also very different for everybody. And what they come up with and where they get to is very different too. And that's great. you know, we're all such unique individuals. But there is something, which is this we space that you were talking about before, Gertraud, which we recognize that somehow it's the same for all of us, even though it has a completely different form in each of us.
And I just wanted to also thank you, Anna. Bettina, we did invite Bettina here, and she was a part of this group, but also got frustrated about the process. And part of why I wanted to bring her in was because of the conscious human flocking work that she had designed and developed early in 2016, as a part of what she was learning with the Women Matters and her own inspiration. I would love to reconnect with Bettina and find a way to be able to include Sam, I'll just mute you. And find a way to include that work. Are you saying that she's been co-design, like further developing it, and you've seen some new pieces?
No, after she left, I didn't have contact with her anymore, but she was the reason why the Reinventing Organizations Wiki group, and we were in a telephone group when we did this Superhuman Operating System with Ken Wilber. So she's a very, I mean, I had very decisive moments with her, and I really love her very much. And it was not the time that I could grasp it. So sometimes she's just, she's very quick with her mind and at the same time very intuitive. So maybe it's time, I just have to go back and get that, what she did, and grasp it a little bit better, and maybe get in contact with her and talk about it with her. So.
I would love to do a maybe what we can do, because it was a similar energy as I'm describing of her not feeling received necessarily. And so
yeah, it was so.
Yes, both with Women Matters and with here, the Global Challenges collaboration. So I wonder if we can do a podcast, or, well, record it, but it doesn't have to go out there, but a way to be able to explore that work so that the space is really being held for that exploration and expression. I would love to participate in that.
I'm going to have to leave. Thank you very much, everybody, for this evening.
Yeah.
Thank you, Anna.
Bye, Anna.
Thanks, Anna.
Bye-bye.
Talk to you next time. Just for the record, I did put into the chat, and I know nothing about conscious human flocking, so this is really a naive question. Does flocking deal with members' frustration?
Yes, I think it does. I'll just share a little bit of what I received. Essentially, if we think about us being the sovereign units that are part of a larger scenario, a larger community, that how we are in relation to each other, how close, do we give people enough space to be able to flap? How do we take cues of how, we're turning? Are we turning together and making those sort of conscious decisions in terms of how we move as a group? And Bettina had done some really beautiful, deep thought around incorporating integral theory and next stage organization work, of which she's deeply steeped in, to deeply consider then, how do we move as a group? So I think it would be really awesome to receive those insights and see has co-developed, as well as to kind of jam about how it can be used, so that we can better coordinate our efforts, both in the me space and in the we space.
Maybe I can double click on that. Does flocking basically involve voting with your feet or voting with your wings, basically? If you don't feel that you've been accepted as a member of a flock, you go to a different flock?
I don't know, you'd have to ask her. We can extrapolate what we think that she might mean, but
yeah, but it's too. I just have to go back to what she shared, and before I say anything that's more than just.
I really resonated with her work as a framework for discussion, because it's pointing out this need to figure out how to work together. And I also kind of like that it's birds in flight, because there's many dimensions of which we need to coordinate. And it's a good metaphor.
Yeah, and it's even beyond self-management.
So I have to apologize. I'm going to drop off in about 1 minute, but I very much enjoyed this discussion here today, and look forward to the next time.
Yeah. See you on Thursday. So, shall we wrap up, or do we have important things that are still need to be shared?
I would love a little wrap up. You can come through the last little bit of my journey in the house. I feel like, I really feel good about how much we how wide we traveled and how close to home we stayed at the same time today. I feel that, we've really worked on some important things that are about our identity, both in the we space and the me space. So I'm really grateful for today's session.
I also enjoyed very much Now in the Dark. Samuel, you're looking good. No, Tammy, you're looking good. And I think these deep questions of ability, availability, and attitude between the introspection and exospection and sociocultural spection, that is so hard to cover, but you're doing well. And I really enjoyed, and I even found some light now. So good night and good luck.
Good night, Heiner. Oh, that's great here.
Bye-bye.
Yeah,
Bye, Heiner.
bye.
Do you guys have some final thoughts?
Well, I don't have so much, but I really appreciated this, and I'm really glad you shared that with us, Tammy, because I think it's great for us to go into these difficult questions, as I mentioned, and I also feel that that there's something more robust which we're a part of, where over time, whatever we add into the common pool, it will make a difference. So, well, I think patience is important. So I think that's good for me now. yeah, can't cover everything at once. That's a frustration for me always. There's so many things going through my mind, but then I have to take one thing at a time, and then it's time and space. You have to exist in the time-space continuum. You know, it's not so easy, but I think we're doing pretty well.
Well, I heard you guys are wrapping up, so I decided to come back for just one closing point for myself, and that is that I'm going to go back to my living room or barn raising metaphor, which I think, by the way, is similar to the stone soup metaphor, Gertraud.
Nail
soup. In the US, I think it's called stone soup, sorry. So I would say that in the Sundays and Thursday conversations, we've been more like a living room with people bringing refreshments. I think the Tuesday conversation series was more with the intent that we're doing barn raising. So for me, that's kind of a useful distinction between the Tuesday versus the Sunday and Thursday. At least for me, that's how I'm thinking about it. Okay? Over for now.
Just for clarification, what is the Tuesday group?
Oh, Gertraud, if you're not on the calendar, Tuesdays at the 9 o'clock Pacific time, which is the same time as Thursdays, I believe. I think it is, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is it? I don't know. I forget. But anyway, the Tuesday was proposed, and we had the first one of them last week for, I think it was Heiner and Glenn and myself and Doug and Tammy and Harry, I think.
Anna.
And Anna, yeah. So those that really were kind of looking at, trying to share those decades or years or, in Heiner's case, like I said, lifetimes of work that we would like to put together and see if we could co-create something out of it. So that's how I'm thinking about the Tuesday conversations.
Okay, thank you.
Are we planning to have that on Tuesdays? Is that sort of the steady schedule? Because generally I can't be there on Tuesdays.
I'm going to set up that schedule on the calendar.
Okay, so it's the same link.
Yes. And I think it's at 8 a.m. our time. So
8 a.m. our time, okay. I'm not sure if the link is the same. I'll have to double check, okay.
I think it is. It was your link, which is always the same.
Well, okay, my last words. I'm really happy, and I was the whole holidays I was away, and so it's really so so healthy, and I'm just thinking if the flocking thing can also be matched like a swarm or so with a big fish, with the power thing that conscious human flocking or whatever you call it could create something where I don't know, take out just a specific one or suppress the whole. So this power structure could even be dealt with as well. I mean, the outside powers that we were talking about at the beginning. Yeah. So thank you very much, everyone, and I'm really happy to it's really like family. No, not yeah, kind of. It's familiar, trusting.
Family entertainment.
Yes. Interactive.
Not for everyone, family is that nice feeling that I have. So, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, and we'll see you. I'll be here for Tuesday, and I guess a good protocol would be to just post it to the group with the intention of the session. Okay.
Great.
Bye-bye.
You're all awesome.